in right now.
Okay, we'll get started. Welcome everyone. This is the Washington State Building Code Council IBC Technical Advisor Group for Thursday, December 18th, 2025. Could we please take roll?
Todd Byerther.
Here.
Roger Haringa is not online with us. Joe Mayo, not seeing. Che Fortaleza,
Here.
thank you. Tim Woodard, just popped on, Tim. Or Tim Woodard, I see you popped on right as I was calling your name for roll call.
Yes, here.
Hey, cool. Steve Belzak, not seeing online. Lance Dahl,
Here.
thank you. I'm gonna go back. Joe Mayo,
Here.
thank you. Hoyt Jeter, not seeing online. Sean Carlstrom, Sean, I think I saw you pop open or unmute, but I didn't hear anything from your mic. If you want to revisit that, we'll give you some opportunity there. Todd Sullivan, not seeing online. Bill Mybush, not seeing online. Brian Horstman is not online. Josh Mergens, not seeing online. Trent Tinney, not seeing online. I think I see Hoyt Jeter.
Yes. Yeah, Hoyt here.
Gotcha. Brett Conway,
Here.
thank you. Michael Barth,
I'm here.
Leah Summer,
Here.
thank you. Paul Clark,
Here.
thank you. Andy Leonto, not seeing online. With that, we just have a quorum, and I'll continue to monitor for folks to come in.
Okay, thank you everyone. Would anyone from the public like to be recognized for the minutes? Go ahead, Aaron.
Yes, Aaron Scott here with Pallet Shelters.
Thank you. Welcome, Aaron. Okay, I'll move on and jump in if anyone else I missed them. Item 2 is review and approve the agenda. We're going to primarily focus on 4 today, but we've kept child care centers on the agenda as 3. So is there, go ahead, Sean. I see your hand up.
Oh, just wanted to let you know I'm here.
Appreciate that. We're looking for a motion to approve this agenda.
This is Tim. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Tim. Second, anyone?
I'll second.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone have any changes, proposed changes? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Okay, we don't have minutes on here, so that's okay. We'll do that next time. Okay, jumping into 3. For those of you that were here last week, we had it on the agenda also. We just wanted to touch base, see if there are any new proposed additions. That's kind of what our next steps are, is actually pen to paper, like we said. Dustin, can you maybe bring us up to speed if there were any?
I don't have any new additions that were submitted for this one. This one's been tabled for 2 meetings in a row now, due to lack of quorum at the time we were covering it, and then also giving folks more time to digest what we're talking about. The main thing that cropped up, we did have a motion to approve the opinion that you see before you, but then we pulled that one back because the topic of horizontal separations came up, and people wanted to kind of digest that a little bit more.
Okay. So we'll leave it to everyone here. If you'd like to talk about this more, that's fine. The reason we're tabling it is we feel we have time until we get closer to the council meeting. There's not going to be a council meeting in December, so we have time before January if you want to focus more on our emergency shelter topic today. But if anyone would like to speak to this, now is a good time. Or if someone would like to table this, now would be a good time for a motion.
So
I
this
think
is
technically when you table something, you don't need to keep tabling it, but for the record.
So this is Tim. I was just curious because I was under the impression we were going to get more information on what the intent of this was and whether or not it was to reduce the code requirements with the new RCW 1927-600, because as stated in the last meeting, you can currently separate it with a fire barrier in accordance with that table. Like that's just a code clarification. But was the intent of that ordinance to reduce, or that new RCW to reduce the requirements? And if it was, we're not reducing the requirements at all.
Agreed. That's how I remember it also, Tim. And I suspect we just don't have any new information today.
I don't have anything new, but I also didn't go forth and start digging for that information as well. So I got a note here to bring that information to the next time we meet up for this topic.
With that, I'd make a motion to table this again.
Thank you, Tim. Yep. Thank you, Tim. I know.
I second that.
And seconded by Hoyt. Any other discussion? All those in favor of tabling signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. I know that's a formality, but we want to keep it on the agenda so we don't forget about it and keep people thinking about it. Okay, agenda item 4 then is what we're here for, the temporary emergency shelters. Dustin, I see we have some great listing of jurisdictions. Did we have our guest today from Seattle or no?
I'm not seeing anybody from Seattle that I recognize the names for on our attendees list. We were anticipating, oh, sorry, Ardell, I skipped right over your name.
I'm here.
Hey, Ardell.
But we do have Layla from City of Seattle as well,
Yeah.
who is
So we were
Okay.
planning on hearing from folks from Seattle, and then we have a lot of other, guidance from other jurisdictions posted for the meeting today. So since we were anticipating some guests from Seattle, do you guys want to kind of present some of the topics you wanted to bring to talk about today?
And welcome, by the way. Of course,
Yes.
we say from Seattle, we know you all, so thank you for your willingness to come.
yeah. I just want to allow Layla to introduce themselves, pardon me.
Hi, I'm Layla. I'm from the Human Services Department with the City of Seattle. I am a strategic advisor with our homelessness division. Yeah, and I'm really happy to be here. I
I can,
And-
yeah, I
yeah,
can.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't
cool.
really prepare you to to be on the spot. I apologize, Layla. We've been doing some other stuff as well. So why I asked Layla to attend for this tag is to give you all an opportunity to ask Seattle um, from the Human Services side, Human Services Division. We support homelessness with funding towards um, encampments and housing, pardon me, options for serving our unhoused population. And HSD is the source. So as SDCI for permitting, we work closely with HSD when we know of new shelters coming on board. They give us a heads up. Those used to be more often we used to see them within existing buildings. And then the shift in the past few years has been towards encampments, tiny homes, and RV housing. So there's a whole sort of gamut of types of temporary shelters. And we've been talking a lot about shelters within existing buildings. I think we had at one of the meetings somebody come in from Pallet who was talking about more of the encampment type facilities. And Layla, sorry to put you on the spot, but would you be able to kind of give us a glimpse into what you're seeing from HSD's standpoint in terms of the different types of temporary shelters that are coming online now?
And Layla, if I may jump in, first of all, welcome. And thank you, Ardell. In the last time we met on this, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, then we did go deeper into the California example, and most of the discussion was on this topic of trying to define our scope.
Okay,
with
I
hardened
missed that.
cabins all the way up to existing buildings. So yeah, but that just sets us up perfectly. So we really appreciate joining today and helping with our perspective and scope. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, and then I'm wondering, could you clarify this scope? Do you mean like the types of buildings we utilize for emergency shelter, or?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
the kind
sorry.
of operators and providers that were, yeah, so there's the type of buildings in terms of existing buildings. So it's really more about from a programmatic standpoint, who are the operators that you're seeing come in for new shelters, and what types of shelter facilities are they? Are they in existing buildings? Is it, I mean, we have in the city, we have the gamut from, DESC, a permanent temporary shelter facility, to Mennonite church, seasonal, moving to encampments that are our tiny homes that are no longer have a time constraint on them. So if you could give us a little flavor of each of those.
Sure, yeah. So, as you may know, HSD primarily supports KCRHA in its effort to stand up transitional encampments. We mostly do tiny house villages, and so these are temporary structures. They can be pallets, or they can be kind of more traditional house-like structures, and they can be brought down as other land use needs materialize. We HSD kind of acts as a liaison between shelter operations and the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections to navigate permitting and development landscape. On a pretty, I would say, quarterly basis, HSD will look at available properties to see if there's anything suitable for tiny house villages as they come up. I know KCRHA also did a land bank request for information recently as well to see if we could get private landowners to offer up their properties for transitional encampments. And so, while HSC is not really the subject matter expert on building construction standards, we're always happy to facilitate connections to appropriate departments and stuff like that.
Can you just tell us real quickly what KCRJ stands for? I don't know that everybody's familiar.
Yes, KCRHA is the King County Regional Homelessness Authority.
And that became a regional one-stop point of like that's your starting point if you're seeking shelter assistance. Is that correct?
Correct.
Layla, are you also seeing requests for shelters in existing buildings coming through HSD?
Those are less common. Mostly, it seems that the recent shelter requests have been on empty lots. I Since I started with the homelessness division, I think, and it's been about a year now, I can't think of a request to start up a shelter in a pre-existing building that I personally dealt with. I can't speak for the rest of my team.
Okay. I have two in the door, by the way, folks. So it's just not as common
Mhm.
as encampments. And we also had a shift in where during the pandemic, existing hotels
Mhm.
were being repurposed, both locally in the city as well as from a county level. I think you saw those probably in various jurisdictions, maybe some on the call. And that's a much easier permitting standpoint because it's already an R1 transient housing um, occupancy.
Yeah, that's helpful. So, the document, the SDCI policy document that's posted today, that's obviously more focused on existing buildings. Is that
Buildings.
correct?
That is correct. And if you're welcome to bring it up. And the
Dustin, do you mind bringing
preamble,
that up? And then I was going to
yeah,
say after that, maybe we could bring that California definitions up
yeah.
after we look at the SD and
So
talk through the types. Go ahead.
So in the preamble to that, I put all my caveats in, right? And that's what I've been trying to emphasize to this group is that that was developed about 10 years ago for us locally. I was one of the primary authors of that, working with the fire department to come up with alternatives for housing options, shelter options within our city. And it is uh, it was based on the types of shelters we were seeing at that time. And so while I still, like I said, I have a couple coming in right now, um, they're not as prevalent as we were seeing in a decade ago. Again, the shift to encampments, the shift to hotels being repurposed or underutilized hotels
Yeah.
spaces being repurposed,
And
especially
Ardell,
during COVID because of the separation needs to be able to offer that.
yeah, and I think some state policy, right? Could you please characterize what you see in Seattle, the sizes? We have
Yeah,
the three different categories here. Yeah.
yeah, and thank you, Layla, for giving us that overview on from your point of view. So appreciate that. So the different size. So how we are looking at it, and I'll quickly answer this for Todd and kind of kick it back to Hoyt. I think he's had his hand up for a bit.
Oh, sorry, Hoyt.
Sorry, sorry, Hoyt. So we look at them at limited use emergency shelters. So what's a limited use in it? At the time, it was around 20 or fewer beds, and that we started with 16, to be honest. We had, 8 in a duplex or 8 in each residence of a duplex is okay, right? So we got to 20 because that's how many fit in a van, and that's what some provider feedback we got at the time. 50 or fewer beds with limited hours of operation. 50 is that sort of magic number in the code for kicking into other, assembly, and 750, that square feet, that threshold, limited hours of operation, so overnight only or operating year round, or a seasonal shelter. So we see that often, much more so with churches. And larger shelters, under 100 was our threshold. And so those are the 3 criteria that we look at to allow the use of this guidance. Based on that guidance, I think we've talked about this in the past. If you don't fall under that guidance, then you just need to be an other emergency shelter. So we allow that as an R1. And one thing I want to ask Layla to also comment on, if you're still on, is when we maybe you are able to, or maybe you're not, but for a day use shelter and a overnight shelter only, in my opinion, we saw a trend towards day use and overnight shelters in the same space. And that didn't fall as cleanly into our limited use shelter provision. So when you have, 24-hour use as a shelter overnight, and then maybe they have different people in during the day, it's a little different than well, I'm primarily still at church, right? Or I'm primarily still this occupancy. We were seeing banks. I mean, we have it even in City Hall. There's a shelter that can stand up overnight in City Hall when there's surge space needed for Salvation Army. But it's still City Hall, right? We're not changing the occupancy. And when we started seeing day use places offering services for food and sanitation, mail, then opening again at night, that's when we started blurring the line. And Layla, I don't know if you're able to comment, is that an approach to round the clock services that you're seeing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll turn my video back on. Um, it was a lot more, and I'm sure you saw this as well. It was much more common during kind of the early days of the pandemic. I think a lot of providers had to pivot very quickly to being able to provide, if they were a daytime shelter, they wanted to provide nighttime shelter, because so many congregate shelters shut down during the pandemic. I think less so now. There are a few
Okay.
providers I know of that do that, but I think it's greatly that type of sheltering has really dropped, and now we're seeing more in like we call them enhanced shelters, where it's kind of 24/7 consistent, people come to sleep there at night, and it's the same people getting services during the day.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Wait, why don't you join in,
Yeah,
please?
just jump in on this. I mean, one of the things, I mean, we had to make up the rules here in Tacoma. We've had some emergency shelters we've used for two different cases. One for homeless people, or said to get them off the street, so they're not sleeping on the street. Um, and some other conditions, FYI. One of the things that we ended up doing here, we had a fire watch get done because of it, because it was limited amount. Um, I just want to emphasize we followed a lot of Seattle stuff. Sorry, Ardell, we copied you, plagiarized some of the stuff that you had. That was one of the things we actually had on there. I think we had a fire watch for the situation where we used it. But one of the things I want to emphasize, I've been kind of reading this, doing some stuff, also looking a little bit around this country and just kind of get some ideas. Um, I like Seattle's some of the stuff that Ardell has been putting together and doing stuff like that. And I'm hoping, especially like the winter coming here, people lose power, they lose water, whatever they need to do for the emergency shelters. Let's try to get this resolved. And I just really appreciate Ardell spending the time to get this stuff done. So thanks.
Okay, good comments. Wait, thank you. And I'm looking at the Tacoma one also while we're talking through this. Do we want to kind of pick apart a couple of the sections, or do we want to go visit our California definitions just to make sure we're all still on the same page with the different types? Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, in regards to the California definition, most of what we're seeing with these different cities, characterizations and uses is not written in code format in any way, shape, or form, right? So if we're trying to get to that point, I thought in our last meeting we'd agreed to use that California building code as our template almost, to where that way we can make these modifications if we want to go this route or not. So I would definitely think that we should keep that California at hand and kind of see how we can incorporate these things if we want to. But yeah.
And if we pull that up right now, Dustin, please. Tim, do you mind taking a shot at what we agreed to? I think we started zeroing in pretty quickly on which was included and excluded from our scope, right?
So one of the things that we did was we just went down through the different types of emergency or temporary emergency shelters to make determinations whether or not the building code was going to govern those structures. I think the determination that we were trying to make is that we're not setting up rules necessarily for, let's say, encampments, because that usually is focused on a zoning provision. Zoning departments would allow RVs for RV encampments. Then if they allow them, then the building code doesn't regulate RVs. We were kind of trying to go through and cross off a lot of things that weren't under the purview of the building code for the construction purpose. And those things would be regulated based on the jurisdiction zoning codes that allowed, number of shelters within a parking lot or something to that effect. So I know we crossed off like RVs, we crossed off, I think, tiny homes. And then we kind of were zeroing in on some of the other stuff.
And Tim, in my memory, we also discussed the overlap with L&I, right? And so RVs, tiny homes, or am I not remembering correctly? I know we talked about it with tents for sure. Not L&I, but just the tents in terms of the encampments.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. We're trying to narrow the scope of what we're going to create code language for. And I don't know if it's necessarily for encampment setups, even though we can regulate how, these things are constructed and to a standard that they're constructed to. We can't really regulate how you're going to set up an encampment with the building code, or that was kind of the approach we were trying to take. So this was going to be mostly for existing buildings and also for, pallet structures, things like that, like what standard to use when you are doing it.
And then so on the like a pallet shelter that, and Aaron's here today too, I saw. Can we go back to definitions, please, on the California? So that was a nice place to kind of get ourselves grounded on um not hardened, but What category?
It was
I just
something
had it.
cabin,
Yeah,
emergency
cabin.
sleeping cabin.
There we go. Hard-sided structure. No, we did feel that was in scope, and I'm trying to remember why. Or am I not remembering correctly?
Well, currently there's no building code requirement for pallet homes or these types of structures. So I think one of the things is setting up a standard that they could be built to that they are currently constructed to.
Okay. And Aaron, remind me, because is there some L&I oversight? I know we've been through this, but I need to remember.
Yeah, so with our sleeping cabins, they're panelized and fully inspectable on site. Nothing is hidden within the walls in the factory. So with the sleeping cabins, it's always been considered a site-built structure and inspected on site,
Got it.
not through L&I. We do have hygiene facilities, which are two-stall bathroom with showers and heater, which is built fully assembled here in the factory. And depending on the jurisdiction, some go through L&I with that, some treat that as a site-built structure just because it's fully inspectable. There's nothing hidden, so a lot of the thought behind L&I inspections and stuff kind of isn't quite as important because a plumbing inspector is able to see everything, electrical inspector is able to see everything. Structural anchorage is all visible. There's nothing hidden that gets hidden in the factory. So that kind of depends on the jurisdiction. Some places have put those either under L&I or taken that on as within their own purview.
Okay, no, that's helpful. That's what I was forgetting was because it was site built, it was falling under inspection on site, not mobile or modular definition of L&I.
Mhm.
Okay, so if everyone's agreeing with that, then that eliminates RV, manufactured homes, obviously. What else from this list from something that would be considered in the building code?
Well, my notes from last time, we had the definition of RVs doesn't fit our scope, and then we nixed out tents and membrane structures.
And wouldn't that also be to manufactured home? Wouldn't that be HUD?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. And help me, what is a park trailer versus a mobile home versus a tiny home?
I've been looking into this quite a bit recently. The park trailers are they're under this 400 square foot, so they're not mobile home, not HUD governed. Um, those would go through L&I. They're required to be built on a chassis with wheels. Um, and they're more intended for well, as it's written, it's for seasonal occupation. It's not for year-round occupancy. They're for seasonal occupancy. They're more intended to be placed and left there. So think trailer parks. It's placed on the lot. It's plugged into permanent power. It's plugged into permanent sewer. It's not driven around for weekend getaways. Um, so think, yeah, mobile home trailer parks would be what those are kind of based around.
Tam, I see your hand up. Go ahead and jump in, please.
So essentially, they're still governed by L&I, and they actually only have to comply with the RVMA standard, which is basically recreational vehicle, so trailers, campers.
That's that line, like that 400 square feet or
Yeah.
approximately that kind of defines whether it's considered more an RV and mobile versus a HUD
Yeah,
home.
that's what dictates which standard they get built to. If they're
Got it.
over the 400 square feet and they're going to be permanent, then usually they're going to be built to a manufactured home standard.
Okay. Okay, so those are out because those fall under different code and obviously L&I type inspection. Okay. What else are we missing here? Just trying to get us back to where we left off.
Well, you mentioned the tents and membrane structures. We should preface why we were looking at taking those out of this is They did make recent changes to the code for temporary housing in the membrane code section.
Yeah.
So that's where wasn't needed here. It wasn't that we wanted to exclude them, it was just more of if it was already covered in the code on how to construct them, what loads to use for them, those types of provisions. Maybe we still need them in here to evaluate egress from them or things like that, but it was in general, they're now going to be covered by base code for temporary membrane structures.
And those are the changes that are going to be filed in Sierra 102 for 2024, right? I remember.
Right. So
Okay.
those are upcoming.
Those are upcoming, but they're in there. Okay, go ahead, Hoyt.
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of basically say the same thing Tim was saying. Just want to emphasize that those will be in there. But really, the tents are like a membrane structures. I I mean, I personally don't. Do you really believe, Tim? It's more for Tim right that. I don't see a problem keeping that in there as a definition right now. Personally, just because my experience over in Turkey when I was over there, lots of tents were put up that actually had fireplaces and stuff that came out of them, which I was quite surprised. This was after the earthquake that happened as I went over there. I think it would be a good thing just to at least keep this definition in there for things in the future, and not actually remove it. But that's just my opinion.
I won't disagree. I mean, my mind goes to one, we could keep it in there for occupancy, how to set them up per se. But the structural loading stuff is what's all already taken care of. So if that is referenced within here, this California code could have been prior to that as well. I wouldn't want to have this section override what the temporary membrane for human occupancy section says, and I think it's 31 or wherever it gets placed in the next code cycle. So maybe we just need to be careful about it, knowing that there are changes coming that address that.
That makes sense. That's what I'm hearing is that we're saying it's in the code already, or we were addressing tent or membrane structures in 31, and we just need to make sure they're synced and we're referencing and somehow not conflicting. Okay. Okay, so tents are in, site built, panelized structures, hardened structures, or cabins, if we want to call them that. Not the L&I pieces, unless there's something about clustering them that we feel belongs in the building code.
I don't know who else makes these codes to kind of govern how these encampments work. I guess if we want to try to take a stab at it, we could try.
Well, because now I'm starting to wonder, and I'm looking at you, Ardell, and one of the pixels here of, we're talking about whether we're in existing buildings and how many beds and so forth, and what governs on a site.
I am not looking at tent encampments from the tent structures currently. So we only look at encampments for not only we look at the common use structures, and we look at the so bathroom, laundry facilities, sanitation, and also any decks. Generally, there's a platform eating platform with a larger tent. There are tents used for food distribution that are regulated by the fire code, and so we allow that to govern. So I would not recommend going there. I think that striking all of those types of structures is a good idea.
Okay. Where is the definition of an encampment and who has
Who
this?
would be the appropriate people to create rules around how encampments work? Because it doesn't feel like it fits in the building code.
No, it doesn't.
No.
So that's out of the land use code and zoning codes. So what we though get asked for is, well, okay, we've got construction happening because they're putting up either pallet shelters or tiny homes. And when I say tiny homes, I don't mean the appendix Q, I don't know which appendix out of the IRC. They're often built by Habitat for Humanity or a high school or some sort of nonprofit and are shipping to site, we allow them without a permanent foundation. We allow them. This is the at least locally we've long referred to them as wooden tents, but they're a lot nicer than a wooden tent now. I mean, they've got um, low voltage, they've got interconnected smokes, and they've got spacing. So we establish spacing requirements as a jurisdiction with the with the fire department on the spacing minimums between buildings.
And there's a current effort underway, MBI, ICC 12, what, 15? I don't remember. Standard is being developed. Where will that be referenced?
That's just going to be for the manufactured housing. So what that does is it creates rules and standards for the state to follow for consistency of manufactured housing. So basically it'll, and from my understanding, would only be applicable to manufactured homes.
Okay, so that's out of scope for the IBC.
I think up above and I haven't been through this document deep in depth. Is there a term like cabin? Is there an emergency cabin or something that
It's any
Sleeping
hard-sided
cabin.
structure.
yeah.
And I think that's Ardell, where we were going through with Aaron here online, is that's the category that a pellet shelter falls under. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
That's correct. Yep. And that would be the focus. That's what we're talking that's
Okay.
what we see what Layla commented on. That's what as a jurisdiction we've been focusing on looking for those sites, using the land use code, working with providers to stand those up, and then most prominently Low Income Housing Institute, Lehigh, and um, and then every jurisdiction right now has different approvals for that. I'm sure Aaron could speak to that.
Okay, so what we're saying is that unlike within an existing building, beds within an existing building, obviously that's a building, encampments, number, that's land use code and development code out of scope here. Okay.
Right. But the cabin itself could
Cabin
be in
itself
the scope.
and decks and
Yes.
yeah, like you said. Okay.
Yep.
And then where's the line? I'm sure this is a painful topic for Aaron. Where's the line between you have panelized, components and you start to have an assembly that falls out of scope of what's called an emergency sleeping cabin?
Yeah, what we've seen in a variety of places, different states, they get a little language in the code um, that allows for fully inspectable buildings to bypass the L&I or factory assembled structures or whatever they call it in their local state or jurisdiction. I think something like that would be kind of useful for Washington. If it's fully inspectable on site, local inspectors can see everything. It takes a lot of cost burden off of inspectors traveling to factories all over the place to inspect things when the local inspector can inspect it on site, no problem. And it allows for efficiencies in building. We can put the whole thing together and bring it out to site and set it down more quickly when they're able to inspect things or allowed to inspect things on site.
Okay. And I'm asking that question as some of you know, we brought it up in this tag once, but I submitted it to the IRC amendments, but also it needs to be duplicated in IBC, in my opinion. Are we going to deal with the ICC, the MBI ICC 1200, 1205, and 1210 on any of this? Are we going too far if we start bringing those prefabrication standards into this conversation?
Could
I
you
would think we're going
could-
too far, personally.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
Okay. And why? Related to the question I gave Aaron there, because I'm still trying to understand this better.
So essentially, it's up to our state, from my understanding, to choose to use those standards in their process of doing manufactured housing. So really what those standards do is create a framework for them on how they plan review, how they document, how they tag the buildings. It's creating a standard for how they do offsite construction inspections and plan review for the state. It's not necessarily creating a standard for a different type of housing. So we can't really, we could possibly force pallet homes to go through and create their own standard, then sign off on that standard. But it seems outside the scope for emergency shelters.
I think maybe my question is I agree with you, Tim, that it's not for a whole building, but when we get to that line of, is it a panelized system that's built on site versus a closed wall, right? At some point, what Aaron's talking about becomes a closed wall, and we start to, bridge between that and a full scale stick frame wall with sheetrock and everything, right? Where those standards would help, right? That's why to address that inspection and certification in a factory, right?
Well, again, if it's built on site, I would say that the building code standard would help. So you could just build it for the building code standard, electrical standard, the plumbing code standard. You wouldn't need the MBI standards because that's just to create the overall arching structure of the state's process for approving manufactured housing.
Okay, maybe I misunderstand that. I thought it got us towards panelized closed walls.
It is for them to create a standard for their state, but every state basically signs on with ICC to create those standards for their state. And that's what they're working with ICC on right now is creating those standards. It's not making them change what they look at or how they look at it.
Okay.
It's just creating a standard that harmonizes it all, supposedly.
Supposedly. Okay. Thank you. Okay. What's next? How do we get there?
I would like to maybe start digging into the requirements for each one of these types now that we've narrowed them down.
Okay.
And then start to be able to agree on what we feel comfortable with those different housing types and keep moving forward now that we got at least something to work from.
Okay. Well, so we don't feel we need to get into the membrane structures right now, unless, well, let me ask the question. Do we need to get into membrane structures? Is there anything we feel is not in that, was it chapter 31 that we addressed in this tag before?
We could look at what California has. I'd
Okay.
say we go ahead and get into it just because if it does regulate beds based on sizes, things of that nature. Because 31 really is just about the structural components and
That's
using
correct.
reduced loads and
Loads.
how to build them.
So I remember
Yeah,
too.
and there's also other life safety issues for something that's going to be used for sleeping and things like that for a period of time.
Good
So
point.
I do think we should keep it in there. So
Okay. Is there an extra section we want to look at in this California code? And while we're doing that, was there anything else in the other documents we had Bellevue, Tacoma? Well, I don't want to complicate things. Let's stay in California here for a minute, and then we'll come back if we need to. Okay.
This is the section for the tents and membrane structures.
Okay. Yeah, this is quite a bit different than anything we've dealt with, right?
But it does reference 31.
Yeah.
but what's nice about 31, it says may be permitted to be used, which is good. I mean, if it's a maybe is something that, as you know, it's not really a good code language, but it is something that lets you use a membrane structure out of the IBC to be converted to emergency housing if you have one that is on site somehow. So
Okay, so obviously in the middle there, this brings in language for minimum temperature. Is that anywhere else? Anything we're considering? Is that common in the hardened cabins?
That would be beneficial. to us. I know like our values, getting an R60 roof is quite difficult, particularly on a small panelized shelter. So something that kind of references those performance requirements, capable of maintaining a temperature of X, Y, or Z. And since they're not full permanent, these aren't intended to be up for 100 years, and they're very small. It's quite easy to heat or cool. I'm not sure exactly where that fits into the building code. It's kind of energy code.
That's a performance requirement, and it's maybe. Oh, sorry to interrupt you, Aaron.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
no,
I'll ask the
go
building
for it.
officials here. How do you enforce that? Go ahead, Hoyt.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a question like you just brought up, how do you enforce it? I absolutely do think we should have a minimum temperature put in there. Um, Seeing that it was, I'm just using from my experience, it was interesting seeing over in Turkey that they actually had wood stoves in the tents. That now their tents are a lot longer than what we're talking about here, but who knows how long it could actually be, because they had nothing to sleep in. So I don't think there's a problem meeting the minimum temperature provided um, by and I think it's important to have a minimum temperature because if you're below freezing and you don't have temperatures in there, and let's say you don't have the proper clothing or you don't have, other options, um, that's a life safety issue that would be, we already have a disaster just happened and we just added on the disaster. So I do think we should keep some kind of minimum temperature and we could figure that out how it's actually met. That's my, now I'm not saying 50 degrees is correct or whatever. I'm just saying it should definitely be a minimum temperature requirement. So if
Okay.
it's in a cold time, because we get colder than here than we do in California. So unless you're up in the mountains, obviously, but um, San Diego, it's like what never gets below 50. I don't know, but who knows? So
Okay. Thank you, Hoyt. Ardell?
Just a clarifying question. Are you still talking about a minimum temperature in any shelter facility, or are you talking about tents and membrane structures?
I mean, this is obviously 10. I maybe did ask the question, is this anywhere else?
I, the tent one's the one that I was talking just for the tent membrane structures, just letting you know. Um, um, because that's what I have experience in. So
I'm going to ask a question just to Layla. I know that in our encampments, we have, again, we're SDCI is not regulating them as a building per the residential code. We are considering them wooden tents. So while we allow heating, it's it's a standalone like not oil, but portable heaters, right? And putting in permanent heating, it's how far do you take it without implementing residential code requirements? I think it's what Aaron's talking about earlier. It's like what's the minimum temperature, and then does that trigger? If I'm already heating it, then shouldn't I make it an efficient envelope to maintain that heat? And then it actually takes less to heat it, right? And so I think I wanted to just pose a question to Layla. Are there encampments that you know of where we have tiny homes that are not heated or conditioned?
But yeah, thank you for asking. As far as I know, no, I don't think we have any. Well, maybe Tent City 3 and Tent City 4 are the
Oh,
only ones I can think of off the top of my head, but those are tent encampments. Besides that, I think almost every other, like all the tiny house villages have heating.
okay.
So yeah, I think just Tent City 3 and Tent City 4.
Thank you. I think relative to tents, that becomes would become a barrier. I'm just going to say, put that out there.
Well, if you read this carefully, or at least the way I'm reading it, what it actually says is if it's required, then you just simply can't use it as sleeping. It's not suitable for sleeping. And say how to heat it doesn't, it says if it has to be heated, it's no longer suitable. Is that correct?
That's correct. But again, does that become a barrier? Because then you're saying that that tent encampment can't exist, so that becomes a violation at that
Yeah.
point.
Yep.
I was
Okay,
just
I'm
gonna,
sorry, Hoyt and Tim have their hands up. Go ahead and just jump in, please. Yeah. Hoyt.
I think Hoyt just forgot to lower his.
Okay.
So I was just going to point out that the building code currently regulates it based on a performance standard where it says you have to maintain a 71-degree temperature within the building. How do we enforce that? Usually through mechanical engineers and load calcs and a whole bunch of other stuff. But the simple way is, you create a standard that people are supposed to follow, and then if in the field, in the actual conditions, you don't find that standard being met, then you have a code to hold them to. Like you're using this homeless encampment, but I'm out here with a temperature gauge right now and you're not maintaining 50 degrees. So that's kind of like the secondary, like how you would enforce it per se.
Okay.
So I
Do
think
we feel, go ahead.
I think the other important thing to remember too is our guidance here. This is an optional. So what we're doing is trying to create a structure. Different cities and organizations and jurisdictions based on this RCW that this is within, it already says that you can reduce the requirements of the building code. We're trying to come up with some sort of framework to use as a first approach. Um, I like the idea of, in general, you providing some heat within these tent structures, but maybe a city or jurisdiction could come up with an amendment to say if your tent structure is under 10 beds, then we won't require, I don't know. But you could come up with your own thing if you wanted to continue to allow tent structures for emergency shelter that were stayed in for more than 7 days and didn't have heat.
Okay. So is there general agreement that something like this or something similar stays? Anyone opposed? Okay. We have about 9 minutes of it. Before we leave this one and go to the hardened cabins, I know that's not the name. On the top one, where it has these prescriptive curbs or baseboards, I guess they're calling them. Well, they call them baseboards in one and curbs in the other. Um, I
The
guess that's
wooden
fine, but
deck
it says
versus a
4 inches
concrete.
exactly. That's not a 2x4.
I think that might come from other provisions, the accessibility code, for instance.
Okay.
And then we have other things like if it's under 4 inches, it's a tripping hazard. So I think they probably tried to come up with something to codify it in a way to say you're providing railing around these raised structures of some sort. But I
Oh, I see.
don't
The
know for
curbs are
sure.
6 inches. The height above the ground is 4 inches. Okay. So you're saying 6 inches might be dictated somewhere else? You can't go 5.5 inches? Okay, it's fine.
I don't know. I mean, I can tell you where it is referenced. If it's under 4 inches, it could be considered a tripping hazard.
Okay.
So
I
you
will look
can't do
that.
that, but anything between 4 and 6, maybe you could do that.
Okay, I'll look that up. We don't need to get hung up on it. Okay. I have scars from nominal versus actual in the wood industry. Okay, maybe if we can move on and compare this real quick before we leave today to the section for cabins, please. Okay. So this gets into actual loads, which we feel is not necessary in tents and membranes because we have that already. How do they compare out of curiosity? These are just live loads. There's snow loads. Nothing about wind, right? Go ahead, Hoyt. Sorry, I'm not paying attention.
Yeah, no worries. That's one of the things here. Floor live loads are 40 pounds. Sleeping rooms are, what is it, 30 pounds? I think it is. What's it is? And these, my personal opinion, 40 pounds per square foot is a lot. I mean, this is
Pretty
for
heavy.
temporary. Yeah. I would, if if I got to make the choice, I would lower that to 30 pounds per square foot because it really is just for sleeping rooms. I don't know what other people think, but 40
And
is
then
that's a heavy weight. This isn't for entertainment or having a bunch of people over. Or you're not having heavy items being put in these, what I have seen, in places, but maybe I'm the minority here. So
I see they're calling wind loads horizontal live loads here. Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh yeah, I was just going to point that out that the 15 pounds a square foot is what they consider that wind load. Um, but to what Hoyt was saying, that 30 pounds a square foot would make sense, as same with other sleeping areas. One other thing, right in the very 104.1, the square footage says not less than 70 square foot. Um, it's a slightly strange dimension in my mind, going to those, easy dimensions. Two sheets of plywood is 8 by 8, and then you stick a 2 by 4 wall around that. You wind up with a interior square footage a little over 50 square foot. So to get to a 70 square foot, just manufacturing, you've got little pieces to fiddle with. Having maybe a 50 square foot or something that's more natural with the building materials that we have, might be something to consider in there.
Here's our overlap with minimum dwelling unit size. Go ahead, Tim. Thank you, Aaron.
Totally thinking of that too, Todd. But that's probably where the 70 square foot comes in, that national healthy living standard that we're evaluating elsewhere. But also, I was just going to throw out there the floor loading and stuff. I would rather keep it the way it is. I mean, this allows up to a 400 square feet with sleeping lofts. We're building the bigger type structures, then I could see them being used more of just a standard home. And for consistency's sake, not switching back and forth in between loading just seems easier in my opinion. And we're not trying to make a determination that it's only being slept in, or it's only being used as a bedroom, even though I believe the type of shelters that Aaron produces are probably mostly that way.
Okay, because 30 would be more in line with like an attic, right? Or habitable attic. But let's we can quickly it's a good point, Tim. Let's look into that and make sure we compare with other, because I don't know like a tiny home and all these other structures, what even a HUD home, what they're designed for. Go ahead, Steve. Steve, you doing mute? Okay, jump in if you hit the button. Okay, everyone, we only have 3 minutes left. So we made a little progress today. What did we not get to, how do we want to go faster?
I was hoping we might have a motion to use the California appendix as our base, and then I can make that available for everybody in Word format.
And does that allow you then we can strip out some of the stuff we've already agreed on?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I would make
Yeah.
that motion. This is Tim.
second, yeah, second.
Okay. And that was Hoyt, Tim and Hoyt. I think that's a good starting point. Any discussion? All those in favor of making this our base document, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so this is now our base document. I think the next steps are, Dustin, it sounds like we might be able to get a Word doc posted or something, somehow
Yeah.
get this in a Word doc and
My
strip
plan
down.
for that would be to get it all in its native format there, maybe just keep the numbering the same, but label it Appendix XX because it'll get slotted in somewhere in a different spot in the Washington Building Code, and then to try to just show through strikeout what
Okay.
the sections are that we're talking about removing. That way it's not removed, it's just kind of showing we're anticipating potentially removing that. And then maybe next time we can come through, we'll get some different revisions going on that one. And if anybody wants to take the Word document, post it, and submit some changes for the next time we meet, that would be great too.
That's what I think too. I'd grab it if that Word doc was available and kind of go through
I
it.
can get this online, I think probably later on today, and get it posted on the website, and then I'll just send out the Word document to everybody here that's part of the tag. But I guess the folks that are not part of the tag will go to the IBC page for this. Let me just navigate to it for folks real quick. So if we're on the IB or on the SBCC homepage in our meeting schedules and agendas tab here, you come down to the building code tag. And in here we have temporary emergency shelters and dwelling unit size. So the documents will be located here in temporary emergency shelters. And it's pretty minimal in here at the moment. We just got the bill and our topic tracker. So we'll start updating with working documents as we move there. And I can drop all the local jurisdiction information we have for today's meeting on this page as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. That's appreciated. Is anyone in California going to be upset with us for stealing their copyright? Do we need our
I'm
insider
pretty sure
Stoyan
Stoyan gave
to
me the
approve
carte
this?
blanche, permission, but I don't think they're going to be mad. It's published by, ICC and everybody else. So if we take it as a jumping off point, it'll be great.
Just post Stoyan's name on the web page, then he allowed us.
Yep.
And plus, theoretically, we would get it with our ICC contract as an appendix when we create the Washington Custom Code, right? So they're
Yes.
still getting their kickback later.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. So I think this is our last meeting for the year. Are we going to try to squeeze one in?
There's room on the calendar on I guess it would be the last one so nothing on Thursday next week because we'll have a state
Okay.
holiday. And then the first is the next Thursday after that. So this would be the last one for the year unless we
Okay.
want
So
to
we'll pick
squeeze
it up in January. Is that okay with everyone? Okay. Appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
What
Hey,
was the
everyone.
date of that January meeting?
January 1.
January
Actually,
1?
sorry, no.
No, no, I
It's
was
a
gonna
holiday.
say, yeah, okay.
Just
Sorry.
Dustin.
Yeah,
Just me.
I
I'll
won't
be
be
here
able to
next.
make that
turnout.
one. Yeah, January.
It'll
Hey,
be
everyone.
January 8th for dwelling unit size, and then the next week after that, the
15th.
the 15th for temporary emergency shelters.
Okay, thank you.
We'll try
Hey,
to
I just want,
zero in.
yeah, I just want to say everyone have a very happy holidays coming up and a fantastic new year. So,
Likewise. Appreciate that, Hoyt.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.